Hey everyone, thanks for joining. And sorry we're a couple minutes late. We're having some technical difficulties. Imagine that, right? It's 2020. I just blame the year of anything that we got going on. Hey, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kevin DeLong, founder of Cyber Social Hub. And first, again, thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. If you guys haven't had a chance to check out Cyber Social Hub and what it is, just in a nutshell, is it's a different kind of social network, right? You know, you have your LinkedIn's, your Twitter's, your Facebook's. This one is really just for tech professionals. What I mean by is IT, cybersecurity, if you're doing digital forensics for sure. And that's what we're restricting it to. And then we can narrow it down from different topics in there. And we also have a place that you can go within the hub that you can go and apply for one of these, and we'll ship it right to your house or wherever it's at. And if you want one or two, let me know. I have an abundance of these things. maybe a little crazy with the ordering of those for that matter. But anyway, today I'm going to go ahead and just get started into this. Is we have Chet Hosmer. And Chet, I know I got you kind of smushed down there in the corner, so I'm going to kick your video and audio back on here, and hopefully it will do it. There you are. Awesome.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey. And Chet, gosh, Chet, how long have I known you now, man? It's been...
We don't want to talk about years.
Couple years. I mean, I was digging through some of the books that I have of you, and I have a stack over here of the various books that you have written just on Python alone. And I know you've written books away from Python. So, I mean, you've had quite the career and dive into the Python language and other things for that matter. So that's what we kind of want to talk about a little bit today. And, you know, one of the first things is what's Python essentially, for those who don't know, which I know is a really basic question, but I know we have some people in the room that may not necessarily know exactly what Python is. And how is it being used to help investigators out?
That's a great question. I mean, it's a language that's been around for a long time, but continues to evolve. It has a community of support in the millions. Today, it's one of the most popular languages out there. You know, aside C, C++, Java, and other languages, it's on par with those. The interesting thing about Python, especially as it relates to forensics and cybersecurity, many of the investigative platforms and cyber platforms have integrated Python within the platform in order to be able to extend the basic capabilities of the platforms. And so it's an easy way to, instead of waiting for new features or capabilities to come out, you know, for the platforms, we'll talk about some of the platforms, what they are. You can now extend those capabilities in the platform with Python. And there's a couple of reasons why we like to do that. First of all, it's a very easy language to learn. And maybe it takes years to master, but you can start writing scripts on the first day. So it's a scripting language, and there's many other scripting languages out there. But this one has really been adopted within the digital forensics and cybersecurity community as a way to extend and advance the capabilities of whatever it happens to be, a forensic platform or cybersecurity platform or digital investigation platform, whether it's something related specifically to cybersecurity or forensics.
Wow. Okay. And actually, I can't remember. I know our first conversation had to deal with Python. When you and I very first met, it had to do with Python because there wasn't a whole lot of resources available to digital forensic folks out there at that time. And I know I was mildly stalking you at one of the conferences and tracked you down to speak with you. And I know if people in the audience are like me, they're going to have a lot of questions, and I completely jumped over this. So I just want to explain real quick the platform to everybody. So down at the bottom somewhere of your screen, either below me or below Chet, again, depending on where our videos are on your screen, you'll see this little button called Ask a Question. Feel free to ask that at any point, a question that maybe he's not brought up yet. Obviously, if he has, you would have would have not answered it or asked it. But and then if you see that question in there and you have the exact same question, you have the ability to upvote these. So we can upvote the question so they'll appear on the list quicker. So again, it's right down there at ask a question, and of course, chat's over there in the side too. But and if we see you ask a question over there, we'll pull it over for you, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, I think I covered.
I think that's really important, Kevin. I mean, we really want this to be somewhat interactive and try to address the questions that the audience have, as well as, our long conversations about Python and digital investigations. Right. But we'd like to encourage those questions and how this has evolved and how this is moving forward over time. So, really looking forward to fielding some of those questions.
Right. Yeah. It's hopefully there's some great ones out there. We got about 17 people live right now. Yeah. So, and 45 showed up. Yeah, it's great. So like I said, had mentioned before, you've been involved in Python in a long time. It's been so many years since how long has it been since your first book?
I think my first book was back in 2012, and that was the data hiding book, but steganography. But we did talk about Python within that book as well, and had been writing articles about Python and cybersecurity and forensics for, well, I don't want to age myself, but 20 plus years at least, at the low end, right? Right. So I've been doing this for a very long time, and I've been blessed to have worked with so many investigators like yourself, as well as many others that are out there, and trying to, at this point, really trying to help those folks advance what we're trying to do out there from an investigative perspective and from a cybersecurity perspective. Sure, using Python, but other tools as well, to kind of help evolve the field. And I don't know if you've got my, can I bring up my briefing? Can I bring up the slide deck?
Yeah, you can bring up whatever you like.
Is it live? Can you see it? Or do I have to?
Nope. I think you got to share that screen. It's going to hover over your video there and then hit.
Got it. Got it.
Complex of Chrome permissions again.
Got it. Okay. How about now?
Yep. Perfect.
Okay. So I just put together just a couple of slides just to kind of set the stage for this, Kev, if that's okay. And I know we've been working together for a long time, but I wanted to kind of talk about the way forward and what's happened and also where we're going. That's my email address. If anybody wants to reach out, that you can reach me at arizona.edu. I'm a assistant professor of practice there now. I'm teaching cybersecurity and forensics and all within Python. So if you have an interest in that, please feel free to reach out. One of the things that, and Kevin, you've probably seen this slide before. I think that you were at Access Data at the time, and I gave this talk, and it hasn't changed much. And I want to kind of at least brief people in on this. There's this concept that we have these two groups, social scientists and computer scientists, that are trying to solve this problem and build tools and technologies that are there. So we have investigators, examiners, we have social scientists, behavioral scientists on the social science side. And then we have the computer scientists like me, researchers, software engineers, developers, etc. And the issue is that this interaction between those two groups is one where they tend to be separate. And the interaction that we're trying to create is one where we bring them together. So in the case of going forward and where we're going, we want to broaden that interaction. And how does this relate to Python? Well, Python really helps this because collaboration is the key. And we don't want to have to turn those behavioral scientists and social scientists and forensic investigators and whatever into computer scientists. We would rather be able to communicate with them and create meaningful analytics, automate this concept of behavioral analysis, capture knowledge from the investigators. We're us computer scientists, since we're generalists, we think we can solve any problem there is. However, what I've learned in the past, 30 years or so, working with folks on both sides of this, that we really need information from the social science side and the investigators and behavioral scientists in order to be able to make advances. We want to be able to produce semantic understanding, not just data. From a computer science point of view, we tend to create a lot of data. However, extracting meaning or semantics from that information is more difficult unless we have domain knowledge. So Python allows us to bridge that great gap a little bit and then even apply machine learning and AI. So even from a computer science perspective, we don't want folks having to build AI or machine learning algorithms. Rather, what we want them to do is leverage that capability that's built into Python in order to be able to run scenarios through. And that's where the domain knowledge from the social science side is important. And how can we link knowledge across the globe for the kinds of investigations that we're doing? So this is what it's all about for me, and it's about this in several different ways, not only from a investigation and forensic point of view, but is bringing these different types of sciences together in order to be able to solve complex problems. And in my opinion, Python provides a really great on-ramp for being able to do that because of the simplicity of the language and how the libraries have been developed in order to be able to provide that on-ramp, so you don't have to understand and develop and be a computer scientist to participate. As a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, the Communications, the ACM, kind of the primary magazine from a computer science point of view, came out with a statement that said Python is taught at schools, including MIT, Carnegie Mellon, Cal Berkeley, and it has emerged as the leading language to teach novices because it has all of the same capabilities, object-oriented design, etc., that many other languages has, but it's more accessible by anyone. And now we've applied this to cybersecurity and forensics at the University of Arizona. So we are now taking Python and applying it to a whole set of problems that are associated with this, and the students are able to interact with us from the perspective of learning Python, but also applying it to forensics and cybersecurity and machine learning, deception, and a whole bunch of other areas, so that they can actually learn about this in a hands-on way in order to be able to apply this to the problems we face today. So one of the questions that we've sort of tried to answer is, why Python? The vision for Python from the beginning was it was computer programming for anyone. Anybody can jump in and do this. It's open source and free forever. And what that means, that it's been ported to virtually every platform. So whether you're working on Windows, Mac, Linux, Raspberry Pi, whatever it happens to be, you can basically utilize this language. And if you write a script for Windows, you can, and you've done it fairly well, you can run that script on any of the other platforms as well. So one of the questions people tend to have when they ask me, who uses this? Well, there are major players and platforms outside of the cybersecurity and forensic environment that use it. Google, Dropbox, those two organizations, Vito Granusson, who was the creator of Python, worked for those organizations and integrated Python within their platforms. So Google, Dropbox, Amazon, Facebook, all of the list, all of those organizations rely on Python for a whole set of capabilities within their platforms. So it is really a diverse language for that. But on the cybersecurity side, many cybersecurity and forensics organizations have integrated Python directly into their applications, as I alluded to in the beginning. Cellebrite, Autopsy, OS Forensics, who I've been working with Jeff Wright the last couple of weeks, as they've just come out with an integration, Magnet, Splunk, Snort, Wireshark, all of these platforms and many, many more have integrated Python into the platform so that you can extend the capabilities of the platform. And again, this is a short list. There's many more from that perspective. So it's something that allows us to, again, bridge that gap, create this on-ramp for folks to be able to extend those platforms. So just to kind of give you the applications of forensics and cybersecurity, in the early years, we were developing command line applications to help automate, let's say, investigations. In the last 5 or 6 years, we've really been focusing on performing deeper analysis. For example, live memory analysis, searching and indexing, image and video analysis. A lot of tools and technologies have been written in Python to be able to do that. As we move forward from back in 2019 and beyond, machine learning, the analysis of social media in a live setting, the analysis of deep fakes, network behavior analysis, and digital forensic incident response, all of those capabilities are now starting to bubble through and being developed in Python. So just to kind of give you a flavor of where it's been and where it's going, and there really is no limit on the far end of where we can take with this particular language and apply it to these areas. So again, Python has been applied to many different disciplines, but we're applying it here in forensics and cybersecurity. One of the other misconceptions is that Python is kind of a command line oriented application. So it's not really that fun to use. Here's a couple that I've created, and I'll actually demo them for you if anybody's interested. And the one on the left is actually collecting information live from Twitter. The one on the right is actually doing some deepfake analysis of images. So building now GUI applications that are more accessible for people that want to actually do this, and then you can extend these applications to do other things. The last thing I wanted to mention before we kind of dive into a bunch of questions is, where do we go next? Well, this month's Make magazine came out with a cover that says The Rise of Python. And Python has now moved its way into the hardware platforms, where it used to be where when you were developing applications on Arduino, Raspberry Pi, or many of the other single board computers are out there that are used in a variety of applications, you were developing in C or C++ in some low-level language. Now these platforms have adopted Python as a way to interact directly with the hardware. So now we actually have a way to directly integrate hardware, integrate Python with hardware. So you have this kind of concept of cyber physical. So now we can actually access the physical world with Python as well as in the traditional sense. So with that, I just wanted to kind of just provide some basis for that to kind of go forward and kind of hopefully pique people's interest about some questions that they might want to ask, and certainly talk to you and actually give a couple demos if folks are interested.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know it made the cover of Make magazine. That's pretty awesome, just to see how far or the popularity of Python alone.
And moving into that platform, moving into those single board computer platforms is really huge, because those platforms that now have more memory, more capabilities. Yeah, we have them all over our desks, right?
Yeah.
And
I literally just picked it up off my desk.
Yeah, the IoT devices that are built on these small platforms now, Python's integrated, so we can do a lot more with them, and a lot faster and more accessible by more people. So it's not something, again, you have to be a deep computer scientist in order to do that, even if that's what I am. But other people can, add to this on-ramp.
Well, I can attest to that. I am not a computer scientist. Not even close. Math and I don't get along at all. But if I always say, if I can do Python, anyone can do Python, because the bar is set pretty low over here. So,
well, I think that to your credit, the Twitter application that I've been working on for the last 6 months or so, you were the catalyst for that. You came out with the first version of that, and I caught my eye and said, hey, I want to take what you did and actually turn it into a GUI application to make it even more accessible. So you've done great work on that. So I mean, the idea was there, but you took it and just ran with it. What you've done is amazing with it. I want to, because I know I want to run in that direction. Okay. And I think people will get a whole lot of a sense of awesomeness when they see that. But there is a question that came in already, and I want to kind of grab that real quick, and I'll just read it to you. Sure. That way you don't have to pop it up or anything. And this is for, oh goodness, I'm sorry if I'm going to get this screen name wrong, Roble maybe. And it says, hello, Chet. I got my associates in computer programming, and I'm finishing my BS degree in software application development and human-computer interaction. I'm currently learning Python. How can I use Python in ethical hacking? There are a plethora of third-party libraries that have been developed for Python for that exact purpose. So you go to PyPy online and look for the libraries there that are there for ethical hacking, pen testing, those kinds of things. There are many different libraries that you can add. It's one of the really cool things about the community that's associated with Python, is there are libraries that have been built across the globe, literally hundreds of thousands of them, that you can then plug into your environment, and you've got to do some research and find the ones that are specifically related to the ethical hacking capabilities that you want, whether it's pen testing or something else. But those libraries exist. For example, I'll give you a simple example. Nmap is a pretty popular active asset mapping tool that's out there, and Python has a library that wraps Nmap, so now you can bring Nmap directly into your environment. So, and actually build applications that use Nmap in order to do that kind of stuff. You can do it with Wireshark and other applications, as I mentioned earlier, so that you can actually integrate those capabilities in and automate them from that point of view. So there's many ways to do that. So I would suggest just do a little research and find some of those third-party libraries and start to experiment with them. One of the nice things about Python is it's an interpretive language, so you can experiment. No harm, no foul. Load in the libraries and start to experiment with those libraries.
Yep, and that's what I did. I broke a lot of stuff prior to getting anything to work. It's
hey,
great.
we still do today. There's good stuff and bad stuff out there. So you got to play around and find the right tool for the right job within that. There's a lot of great developers out there that are building libraries that, and take a look at the libraries, see how long they've been around, see what kind of community support they have, and then jump on that.
Awesome. We have one more question that just popped in. Hey, Justin, good to see you, man. I recognize. I just see the first name, but I recognize the icon. Justin, you've played golf, I think, with Justin, or maybe.
Oh yeah.
Used to be Access did it. Still is
Sure.
Access. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So he has a question. It says, there are forensic professionals and students developing Python scripts for forensics. Is there any repository or venue for forensic professionals to share those scripts?
Wow. Did you pay him to ask that question?
No, I didn't even know Justin was coming today.
Kevin and I were talking about this yesterday. Kevin and I have been friends a long time, and I have told Kevin that I'm going to donate all of my scripts to Cyber Social Hub, and we're going to create an environment in a group there where those will be there, plus the articles that I've written in that area as a start, and hopefully that'll attract folks that have applications and Python scripts that they want to bring to bear. But I have literally hundreds of them. I'm going to bring them to Kevin, and we're going to have them launched on Cyber Social Hub so people can access those and use them, download them, that kind of stuff. So great question, Justin. And we really want to create an environment for that, and not only to put them out there for people to use, but then for people to come back and say, oh, that's great, but how do we do this? Right? So that we can actually evolve and collaborate within that environment in order to actually build new scripts and new capabilities and enhance the ones that we already have. So I encourage everybody that's on the call or who will listen to this to look for that in the coming weeks and start to contribute to that if you have scripts yourself, and also start to comment on where you'd like to see that go so that we can actually advance that to another level.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, we just started talking about that yesterday, literally. And so if you want in to help kind of design what would be the best user experience as a user, that's what Cyber Social Hub's about. We're about giving just information away to people, and it's a resource just for that, Justin. That's why I built it, because there's not really a place just for what I call the nerds to speak geekanese out there too much. In a social environment without the noise of all the other.
It was kind of like the first question too, now that I know that there's an interest in doing that, now that that question's out there, that's something we could answer more deeply by just me and some other folks taking a quick look at the, ethical hacking capabilities and basically make some recommendations back. So those are the kinds of conversations that I hope to be able to have within the Cyber Social Hub, in order to be able to make more specific recommendations of what kind of tools and technologies, so I can ask some more follow-up questions like what kind of pen testing do you want to do, what kind of hacking do you want to do, that kind of stuff, and then we can maybe recommend some things. And if they don't exist, then maybe we'll develop them. So,
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, again, thanks, Justin. I promise we didn't set that up with Justin. I'll send you the check later, Justin. No, I mean, it's been phenomenal. So, no, it was a great question. And I see there's another one. It's about the PowerPoints, if those are going to be available or not.
Yeah, I sent them to you yesterday, Kevin, so you're welcome to share those.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll just put them up in the feed there, or maybe under the actual talk in Cyber Social Hub. And that way people can have them. Yeah, sure.
So while we're answering some of these questions, let me go back and share my screen again. And what I'll do is, if you allow me to do that, I'll bring up a couple of those applications that are here, just to kind of give you an idea of what's possible.
Yeah.
So
you may have to make those, and again, sorry to interrupt you there. You may have
sure.
to make those larger, or at least maybe just share the application one at a time, and then we'll move back and forth, because I'm getting older. I can't even see it.
Okay. Let me see if I get me back out of this. So and I'll just share one of the
Let me, I'll stop your screen there. Okay, now you can just restart it.
Okay. Hang on, I lost the ball here. Okay. So let me go and I'll just share the application. Let's start with this one. Let's see how this works. Is that better?
Oh,
that
yeah.
better?
Yeah,
Okay.
much better.
So what I did this morning was, since we have things going on in the world, and it's one of the nice things about the Twitter app, there's always something going on that you might want to actually look at. So as I mentioned, just a shout out to Kevin here, he had this catalyst idea of building an application within Python that we could actually go out and grab information from Twitter. And a lot of folks have done this, but one of the really cool things that Kevin did was he created this concept of the bounding box that Twitter has. So you can actually create an area that you can actually put a bounding box around a particular area anywhere in the world. Okay. And then you can determine how big you want that box to be. And typically you had to create the corners of the box. I do that for you here. And what you can do is now you can capture any tweets. The other thing that I added was, so I did this one for Houston, obviously, since that's what was going on today. I put in some filters so we don't get all the nonsense in Twitter. We only get the things that we're looking at. And
so
then
those filters, you just put in certain keywords that you're looking for in that tweet filter section, right?
Yep, because that's not something that Twitter provides as far as the geo bounding box, because we want to avoid some of the things that come up on Twitter that we don't necessarily want to see, right?
Oh, might that be?
And well, that kind of brings up the second point, though. One of the cool things about the bounding box is that a lot of things get posted on Twitter and then they go away. And they go away for a whole bunch of reasons. Either Twitter takes them down or other people complain and they get taken down. But since we're capturing these live within the bounding box, we capture them before they're taken down. So if there's information that's coming from a specific area, whether it be law enforcement related or not, whether it is weather related, whether it's fake photo related, that kind of thing, those are things that we can capture before they go away, so then we can do deeper analysis on those. So basically, any of the images that pop up, I think there's a funny one here, that pop up that we grab as the images and the videos as well. But also we grab the whole tweet that occurred that has any of those keywords in it. If we have, there are emojis, instead of displaying the emojis, we actually display the meaning of the emojis. If there's hate words that we found, we have a whole list of hate words that we can categorize and that kind of stuff, so we can, filter out tweets that are undesirable from that perspective, and we can look at all of these from that perspective. So if I go back up here, this one's stopped right now because there's a time limit. So let me go ahead and do something really dangerous, Kevin. I'll actually start this again. So just everybody know that I can't control what images might come up. Okay, so if anything bad comes up, I apologize, but there's nothing I can do. It's what is on Twitter. So I'm going to go ahead and start this. And so what it's going to do, we may not get much. So it's going to filter tweets that don't match the keywords. Anything that matches the keywords, it's going to pop up for us and show it here. So these things, this is running live now within that particular area. And just so you know, you can pick, any major city within the U.S. So you don't have to design the bounding blocks. If you wanted to do a world city, you could pick a world city, and you can pick any of those. And I've already got all of those programmed in. So a lot of the things within this app and many other apps is the collection of data that's behind the app. So in this particular case, what are the lat lawns of all of those major locations? And if you have a lat lawn that you want to plug in, you can just plug that in directly and pick the size of the bounding box, and we'll get that information that's there. And if any images come up, they'll pop right into the window here so we can see them. So just to kind of erase the myth that Python is this little scripting language, it is a full application development environment that you can create GUI applications. The one thing I should mention is this particular GUI application only uses 2 non-standard libraries. One is Tweepy, which is the Twitter library. Obviously, I have to interface with Twitter, so I'm using the API for Twitter. And the second one is the one that displays the images. Other than that, everything you are seeing on the screen and all the controls, everything are built into the standard library of Python. So you can build full GUI-based applications. I'm working on an application right now that works on the web using the Flask environment as well. So you can actually do this from a web-based interface versus just a standard standalone GUI. Now, the other thing that's important about this is that this application, without modification, will run on Windows, Linux, and Mac. Right out of the box without change. So try to do that in other development environments. It's much more complicated. So any case, that's just kind of an idea of the kinds of things that we can do, in this kind of an environment so that we can actually pick locations. So if I wanted to do something really crazy, I could stop this and go to Paris, France and say, okay, we'll start this. And again, no promises what's going to come up. Probably nothing because these keywords are not going to be in there, but we're getting a bunch of tweets that we're filtering out from Paris that don't have the keywords in them. So if I were to take the keywords out and rerun that, we would get all kinds of stuff from Paris. And if I want to really live dangerously, I'll go ahead and do that.
Yeah, if you want to live dangerously, just look for any of the presidential campaign terms.
Right, I could go to Charlotte, North Carolina, and do that bounding box, but I'll do
your box may start smoking.
Right, I'll do like 50 miles inside of Paris and see if we get anything here that is there. So again, these are now direct tweets that are coming from, and it gives you the location where they came from and what they, and obviously they're in French, right? Which at least I don't speak French, that kind of stuff. So again, that was an image that happened to be in one of the tweets that was there. That was benign, thank God, because you never know what's going to come up. But just to kind of give you a flavor of what you can do really quickly and bounce around. So the reason I wanted to build this, again, based on the catalyst from Kevin and his initial approach to this was, in many cases, something happens in the world. So one of the questions is, where am I going with this app? What something happens in the world, and what we want to do is we want to go there immediately and be able to see what's going on and basically capture the tweets as they're happening. And that's the whole point here. So what I've been doing recently in extending this application is plugging it into the Associated Press and pulling in news stories that come from the AP and then automatically going to the locations that are identified within the Associated Press to pull information from those. So this will become even more automated. So those are the kinds of things that we can do to make this even more useful from that perspective.
Now it looks like you're catching, which makes me laugh. There's like an emoji per minute gauge up there, which I understand what you're doing with that, but it just when you just glance at it, it's like, oh, awesome! People use a lot of emojis. Yep. But you actually do something unique with that, and with that, the icon immediately to the left of that hate per minute one, right? They kind of go hand in hand there. What are those?
So in the case of the emojis, it's a really good question. I have mappings of over 3,000 emojis that we can pull out of the tweets and then map them to what they mean. So as I mentioned earlier, part of building these apps sometimes is more mundane, where you're trying to collect and do mappings of these. And the same thing with the hate speech. We've collected a whole set of hate speech that's out there, and if any of those words occur anywhere in the tweet, we'll basically mark those and capture those and identify that as hate. So people saying things that are racist or otherwise, we can capture those and basically know where they came from. So it's just something that people were interested in knowing if that was going on, during protests and that kind of stuff. So we've done that. We continue to extend that database to include more and more speech that is undesirable. And the same thing with emojis. As more emojis come out, we create those and map them to their meaning. So we actually capture the emojis as well in another file, so you can go back and look at them. But we found it to be really useful to basically, especially since this particular tweet here, there were, and it's kind of associated with the picture, right? So this was the emojis that were associated with this particular tweet. Okay, hand, face blowing kiss, rolling on the floor laughing. So all three of those emojis were in this particular tweet, right? But we're translating them for you. Regardless of the language, right? So basically, we're bringing that to a language that we all know and love, English, to be able to convert those to something that us mortals can understand, to be able to see what those are. So that's some of the things that we're doing here, like you said, that are kind of neat to be able to understand what that is. And sometimes you'll find a tweet that has a dozen emojis in it, and now you can kind of quickly look at what those mean and how they connect together.
You need a happy meter.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know how well that would work on Twitter, though.
Hey, that's a good idea. I'll make another one of the charts, and I'll have a whole set of words or emojis that are happy, and then we can have, what those are,
The sentiment of the protesters. They're happy right now.
Exactly. And also, we know how many videos per minute. We capture the videos as well. It's something that you did in your original Twitter application as well. So I stole that code and plugged it in. So it's a community. It's a community process.
This is so awesome what you've done with this. I can see how this would benefit, investigators, just people gathering information on
news organizations, anybody that wants to basically pull the things as they're happening so they can factor them in. Yeah, any of those folks.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. That's awesome work. This thing has came so far since the initial thought of it. Just amazing.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. And like I said, I give you the credit because you're the catalyst behind this. So I'm glad we're moving it forward. I think we have a few more minutes. If you want to get me back to where I can bring up the second app, I would happy to do that.
There you go. You should be there. Also, if you guys have, while you're doing that real quick, I threw a couple polls down into the polls. So down along the bottom bar, you see like questions and then polls. I went ahead and asked some, you guys have already found them anyway. I'm going to make another one visible here. So there's one that says, are you currently using Python? And another one that asks, are you a member of Cyber Social Hub? And then my follow-up would be that, why not? It's absolutely free. And there's a community of people just like us there. So I'm just currently, right, if you're a member or not, and if you're using Python, just a couple of questions that I'm personally curious about. If you guys want a poll question, throw it into chat. I'll create a poll question if you're curious too. Chat, same thing. If you want to know some kind of poll the audience, I think we have like 20 live people here. And then we usually get a lot more in the replays as well, and they can answer that in the replays too. Sure.
So I think what I'm going to have to do is close me down again. I want to bring up, unfortunately, I got to bring up the whole screen on this one to actually show it. So
yeah, no worries.
I only did the app. I need to share the screen, so it'll be a little small, but you'll get the point.
Okay, I think everybody will have to zoom in on their browsers a little bit. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make my browser massive size here.
Can you see those?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, good. So one of the things, and one of the reasons that we were interested in performing this live capture on Twitter was because we wanted to capture images that would potentially contain fake content. In other words, that were deep fakes. So we needed a method to be able to go out and collect images that are out there that we could actually use. So this image on the right, this fake image on the right of Trump and Putin was one of the ones that we had captured. And so we, moving to machine learning and some of the other things that we can do in Python, built this application that allows us to analyze images and actually identify potentially anomalies within those images that are related to deep fakes. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead and analyze this image that I have up here. And it'll go through and actually perform the machine learning based on the images that we have collected. And now you can look at these side by side. And so let me zoom this one in so you can see it a little bit better. So you can kind of see these yellow dots here are the areas of the image that we have detected anomalies where the two images were put together. So in other words, this was a fake image of Putin looking over Trump's shoulder and whatever. It never happened. And you can see that. But one of the things that we found that was really interesting was you notice that we're seeing some of the same anomalies within Putin's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, well, why has that happened? It took us a while to figure out what was going on here. We had to do some research, and we found that, well, Vladimir Putin wears contact lenses that enhance the color of his eyes. And so the algorithm, the machine learning algorithm, is actually catching that anomaly that is not fake, but is something that actually is interrupting the normal image that we have. And so it can detect those kinds of anomalies as well as anomalies that were created by somebody, putting these together. You notice on President Trump's face, there are anomalies that are happening on his front teeth because he wears caps on his front teeth in order to enhance the smile. So just to kind of give you an idea of what we can do with machine learning in this environment, and this is some of the stuff that we teach at Arizona of how to actually compile these data sets, build these machine learning engines to be able to apply them to applications like this, in this case, fake photo and deep fake detection, deception, and other things. But this is the kind of application we can build in pure Python. And Python has a whole set of libraries that are used for machine learning, and it's probably one of the most popular machine learning platforms that are out there in order to do. So as we talk about moving forward, this is where people go in order to experiment. Now, in some cases, they'll experiment within Python with machine learning and machine learning algorithms. You don't have to build them, and then they may move them to another platform. But it's really typically the first stop if I want to actually experiment with and start to build machine learning capabilities. I'm going to do that in Python and then potentially move it to another platform.
That's amazing. So what you're telling me is that Trump's skin really is orange. It didn't detect that was fake.
That was not fake. No.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm that. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's just, got to make it fun, right?
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, it's like, and like I said, there's lots of other, images that we have here that we can analyze that, we can have some fun with. This is one of my favorites. This is the algorithm goes out and establishes a baseline. So this is a live demo. This is not canned. So I can go out and pick another image and kind of do this one, just to go back to your point about, some things that are a little bit, more fun maybe than politics, and that kind of thing. I thought I would show you one more that is kind of cool. So this was a pilot taking a selfie flying at 300 miles an hour out the window. And obviously this one is fake as well. And we can kind of, zoom in on this one as well. And this had multiple fake components. The glasses were added, the tie flying in the wind. So we're finding anomalies where these were added to the image. And even if you look at the engine, this is really kind of funny. There's anomalies within the engine, and because obviously this plane was not really flying, so the engine was not really moving, right, when they took this and put these pieces together, but they actually made some changes to the engine itself in order to make it look like it was actually moving. So folks that are putting these together are taking a lot of care in order to be able to put these together, even if they're kind of fun. But you notice the rest of the image is clean, right? Because it was part of the real image. The backgrounds here, the water, all of that stuff where you would expect to see anomalies, you don't, because they came from the real photograph that was taken. Right. So the algorithm works fairly well at being able to identify these anomalies that were added to a photograph so that we can actually dissect whether, we do this a lot when we're looking at crowds and that kind of stuff, and people holding up signs that have been changed and all of those kinds of things to be able to find out what's real and what's fake, within that environment. And, these are the ones that are kind of funny, but there's some have been more serious. One of the ones that I typically demonstrate is during Hurricane Sandy, some folks put out images of the hurricane coming into New York Harbor over the Statue of Liberty, which never happened. That image actually ended up on the evening news. And so,
doesn't surprise me.
Right. So, some of these things are pretty serious, when people are starting to panic because of what they're seeing or getting disinformation that's out there. So these things we can also tackle, with the tools that are available to us in Python.
That's pretty amazing. I know when you first came out with this, you've been working on this project for quite a number of years.
Yeah.
And I think in today's society, it applies so much right now that it's like you were trending before you were trending, right? I mean, it was.
Somebody told me the other day, could you build an application that would find real photos? Everything else is fake anyway. So can't we just give us the shorter list of stuff that's not fake? And I said, yeah, that's really a good idea.
Right, just
A
flag them.
non-fake photo application, right?
Oh, that's so great. Yeah, that's perfect. Oh man, Chet, these are awesome, and and I see people asking. I knew this was going to happen. Of where can they get copies, or is it available, or what's your plans with these? What are you going to do with these things?
Both of these are experimental right now, and right now I'm planning on working with the students at Arizona. The students are in the program coming through. They're going to be enhancing these applications, and eventually they'll be, once they go on the experimental stage, then we'll be able to put them out there for people to have access to and also enhance. So again, part of this is to build a community that's going to actually take, kind of like what I did with your Catalyst application, right?
Right.
On the Twitter side, is actually put these applications out here with a way to enhance and extend them. So again, you don't have to be a computer science to handle all the heavy lifting, right? In order to be able to add capabilities to these applications, in order to be able to have people start to use and enhance and expand them. There's many ways that we can expand these. One of the big ways, since the question was asked, is we need more fake videos, more fake images, and more real ones. So one of the ways the community can support this activity is to bring us images that we can build into this. So the more images that we use to train the machine learning engine, the better the machine learning engine becomes, right? And so it's the same thing on the Twitter side. The more locations that we have lat long values for that we could bring into the application, the better that we can actually have people more easily select those and go to those at a moment's notice. Or if we were to open this up where people were to send us, let's say we were to host this on AWS or something, where people want to push in a particular lat long they're concerned about right now, then the application could run within the cloud and they could get that kind of information. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about, and moving these from, let's call it the experimental stage, to an application that folks can start to leverage and utilize.
That's awesome. Yeah, you threw down the gauntlet with a challenge on the fake photo. I got a couple ideas. I'm going to try to fool your system.
Good.
I was just thinking this, like, how can we fool it? I have a couple ideas.
Well, hey, let me show you one that, while we're still talking, we got a few minutes, right? Let me see if I've got one here. This is a good one. This one takes a second to run because it's a fairly dense image, but also one that's fun. So this will take a minute or so to process because it's a much larger image. But while we're talking, I'll bring this one up to talk about ways that you can fool it. Since you brought that up, this is a good one that people will enjoy.
Great. Also, if anyone has any questions, go ahead and just drop them in the Ask a Question tab down there at the bottom of your screen. There should be it doesn't even look like a button. It's just the words Ask a Question down there. And if you haven't joined Cyber Social Hub yet, depending on how you came into the Hubcast, whether it was through Crowdcast or directly through Cyber Social Hub open area, there's a button I put right in the middle of the screen down here, right below the video, that says Join Cyber Social Hub Free. If you click that, it should drive you over to the registration page too. So
looks like we got a couple more questions and
look at that.
The polls.
All right, I'm going to go grab these questions. And the first one here, it says, what classes at UA will be involved with these apps?
Cyber 473 and Cyber 474 are two that are going to be involved with these specific apps. There's also Cyber 312, which is basically the intro to Python, specifically intro to scripting with Python for cybersecurity and forensics. And then there'll be another class that'll start in the spring, which will be Cyber 475, which is going to be, this actually goes to one of the earlier questions, that's going to apply this to deception technology. So this is an image that I just ran the tool against, and you notice that no matter what I do here, can you guys see this one? You can see this, right?
Oh yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. So
I knew it. It's real. I knew it.
So yeah, so there's nothing wrong with this, right? This is perfect. This is a great image. There's no yellow marks anywhere and that kind of stuff. So the question is, how does that happen? Well, basically two ways. this particular image was real from the perspective of that object was in the frame when this photo was shot. Right, so it's a drone or some other controlled device that was there. So there's nothing that is unusual about the frame. The other way that this can be created, if you're using CGI, computer graphic, creating computer graphics, those are very difficult to detect change because they don't have the kinds of anomalies that we're typically looking for, or we don't have enough samples yet in the machine learning environment in order to be able to discern anomalies that are within those CGI generated images.
So with that, there's the next question.
Okay.
How does it affect CGI? That's exactly what the next question was. That was a great timing on this.
Yeah, no, it does. And the answer to that question is the CGIs can still be modified, right, and altered, but we need more samples of both real and fake in order to be able to train the machine learning engine in order to discern ones that have been modified or altered from that perspective. So that's the short answer to how we do it. And when you take the classes in machine learning, we show you how we go through this process. And there's this kind of misconception about machine learning as well that's kind of fun. It's like, yeah, we just put the images in, we hit the button, and we're done. Well, no, not exactly. Part of the problem is being able to determine what features are you going to collect from the image that you're going to run through the machine learning engine. And then you got to see if those features matter. Right? And then you run through this process over and over and over and over again until you tune the features that you're collecting and have samples on both real and fake that make difference. And then you can actually have the algorithms actually produce quality results. Right? So that's what we teach, how we actually go through the process of creating those data sets, those corpuses, if you will, that we use to train the machine learning engines as part of the arduous process of machine learning. The algorithms are written, right? The algorithms are available to us in a bunch of platforms within Python to run, but actually teeing up what we're going to put into the machine learning engine is the trick in how we're going to collect those features. I'll give you an example. Years ago, I was working on a government project for the DoD, and we were trying to actually detect fake fingerprints. And so in order to be able to detect fake fingerprints, that were basically being used to log into systems, for example, using your fingerprint to log in. So how do we actually detect those? And so examining the different factors. So we went out to a bunch of universities and we collected fingerprints from a whole set of students from all diverse backgrounds, right? And I can get rid of this. From a set of diverse backgrounds, right? And then we had them enroll their fingers, wet, dirty, cold, hot, all these different forms of their fingers. And then we actually got a bunch of the students to actually give us molds of their fingerprints so we could actually create latex overlays. So then we could create a latex overlay and actually fake the systems. So what we had to do was figure out what features that we were going to collect from those real and fake fingers that we're going to be able to distinguish between the two. And that's what we're able to discover. So we actually figured out what those specific features are. So it's the same thing when you're dealing with images, right? We're trying to look for features that are natural and normal. I mean, obviously, I've done this for many, many years with Stego and being able to detect images that contain hidden content. So some of the same features that we collect, not all, but some of the same features that we collect when we're looking for stegoed or compromised images, we use some of those same features, but we program the machine learning engine a little bit differently.
That's amazing. I mean, just to see alone the amount of again, let me preface this a little bit. If people came thinking they were going to learn basic things that Python can do about this, that's not really what this was about. This was to show you the full capabilities that you can use Python in digital investigations, and it just comes so far. It's crazy that the fact that they're full GUI interfaces, right? And not command line. And I think that's one of the biggest, probably one of the biggest misconceptions about it. It's like, oh, I gotta write scripts. I gotta do this stuff.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, and it's funny. I mean, some of the new stuff that I'm working on in that particular area is basically digesting PCAP files, but I do that with the GUI interface as well to kind of do that kind of stuff. So again, it's not typing on the command line anymore, actually doing that. The students this semester in 473 are actually taking that application and building GUI applications around the analysis of network traffic, modeling behaviors so that we can determine asset mapping within an environment from a passive point of view. There's a lot of tools out there go out there and do that actively, right? Nmap and others that will actively map a network. The problem is in many environments, especially critical infrastructure environments or industrial control environments, you can't use active scanning within those environments because they potentially could damage the information. So we're using passive mapping, a passive monitoring of those networks and mapping those using Python in order to be able to map behaviors. The other advantage of that is that when you're doing active mapping, you're taking what I would consider like a photograph of the network as it exists at this moment in time. With passive, you're looking at it over more like a movie. Now I'm looking at over maybe a week or 2 week period of time to determine the behaviors. So if systems weren't online or they had been compromised or whatever, and they start communicating some odd way, we're going to catch that by doing it from a passive perspective where we might not have caught it based on that first question, doing pen testing and that kind of stuff. Those are great things, but they're giving you like a snapshot of what's happening right now. And the question is, what's happening over a 2 week period? Are there threats within that environment that are low and slow that we're not going to catch when we actually do that initial snapshot? So there's lots of things that we do within that environment, and that's what we're teaching at U of A.
Wow, sounds like an excellent program. And I'm assuming the website's getting hit right now, or will be, as this goes to check out the different courses that are out there.
It's very popular. I have 90 students right now in the classes that I'm teaching right at the moment. So it's an area that is extremely popular, and people are really interested in being able to build their own technologies in that environment.
Wow. So if people want to follow up, I guess where's a good place to do that?
Just you can obviously find me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest place if you want to do that. And obviously on the first slide, it was just Chester Hosmer at arizona.edu. If you want to send me an email and note that way. I'm also on Twitter, but probably LinkedIn is a great way too if you want to connect with me there. It's just Chud Hosmer and then if you want to look on Amazon, anything I've written, that kind of stuff, just look for my name on Amazon and you'll find all the books I've written in this topics and that kind of stuff if that's of interest.
Awesome. And my plan is to try to drag you into the hub with Python related stuff.
Yeah, no, we decided that yesterday. I showed you all the resources that I had, we talked yesterday, and we're going to get those up on Cyber Social Hub so people can use them and expand them, and we can communicate about this. It's a perfect place. I've always, we've been talking about this for years, about that perfect place to come together where we can have these kind of conversations. I know Justin was on here, and we had worked with him years ago about how do we actually integrate this with MP3 and I keep saying MP3. It's not MP3.
MPE when it was alive.
MPE when it was alive. And that kind of stuff, but trying to basically figure out how we can even collaborate on this or communicate about this out there. So this is going to be fantastic that we will have a place, we'll have a home where we can put this stuff, where we can start to collaborate and think about what we want to do next. I know me and you want to basically get Arduinos out and basically go out and map the world, but there may be other cybersecurity related applications that we need to work on as well.
They serve as great fidget spinners too. I've been sitting here the whole talk with it kind of hidden down off screen.
Yeah,
multiple purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to respect everyone's time. It's right almost at the hour even here. We've been live for 57 minutes, 58 minutes. I'll leave a couple seconds for anyone who wants to throw a last minute question out there. But Chet, again, thank you. And as I said, I'm going to send you some swag, and thank you for being on Cyber Social Hub. And again, anyone who wants one of the stickers, just go into the hub and you can, there's a big send me a sticker or free sticker. I can't remember what it says exactly. And we'll just ship it right out. I literally have piles of them here, envelopes over here, and stamps here. So we'll just, as it goes, and get it out to you. Well,
thank you, Kevin, for two things. And I really want to thank you for two things. One is for creating the Cyber Social Hub. So we have a place to basically do this, number one. And number two, thanks for inviting me to come out and talk to the folks and whatever. And thanks for everybody that joined in today. Great questions. And hopefully it was helpful. Hopefully it was encouraging, that you might want to jump in and do some of this a little bit more yourself or kind of join into the process. But thank you for hosting this, and thank you for having a place that we can put all this stuff in Cyber Social. And I look forward to joining you in the future on other talks. We got other stuff we could talk about.
Absolutely. We can talk for days.
Yeah. Sounds good, man.
Right. Great. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you.